Okay. Turn off the waiting room.
Yeah. So hello, everybody. We're gonna start soon. Just gonna give it a few more minutes for people to join in. Thank you very much for coming. Hello. So I assume all of you have received our email, and are you able to join our Discord channel? Yeah, okay. So this is how we're gonna do it. When you have a question, you can either type it in the Zoom chat or the Discord channel, although Discord channel will be preferred because we'll have our very qualified and amazing mentors there to answer your questions as well. So if you type in the Zoom chat, we might not be able to see it because we're the presenters, but we have dedicated people on Discord to answer your questions and see your questions and collect them to ask us in the end. So if you go back to our information week 1 email and see the Discord information, you'll be able to join there as well. Someone has a question. Okay. Ali, you have a question? You may unmute yourself. You can ask.
I would like to ask, would this meeting be recorded or?
The meeting will be recorded. Okay.
Yes, the workshops will be recorded. So as you probably have seen in our advertisement, every week there are going to be 2 things that are happening. One is the workshop series where you are here to learn some hands-on coding, and the other part would be speaker presentations from our speakers, from our experts that we invited. So the workshop itself will be recorded, but the presentation, whether that will be recorded, will depends on whether our speakers are comfortable with it. But if you have registered, we are going to let you know through email.
Yeah.
Whether
so
you
today's meeting will definitely be recorded.
Yeah.
And from now on, we'd like you to direct questions towards the Discord channel. Perhaps Zachary can send the link to that in the chat right now.
Yeah.
And then we'll get going. Hopefully a lot of your questions will be answered shortly.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Awesome. Okay, I guess we'll get this started now. So hello, everyone. We really appreciate your attendance today, and thank you for being here. We're the McMedHacks, originally MedHacks, but that name was taken, so we added the McGill there. So McMedHacks, a mouthful, but you'll get used to it. So this is the first week, and this is our opening ceremony. We're going to have Dr. Shirin Enger, who is our lab director, lab supervisor. She's going to give us a keynote speech later on, and we're from the McGill University Medical Physics Unit, also associated with the Jewish General Hospital in Montreal and Lady Davis Institute. Thank you, Luca.
All right. So we're gonna cover a few technical things first. We'd like to know, first of all, did you receive the information email? Because we got notified that some participants did not receive an email. The email should have looked something like you see in the top left corner here. It just had all of the information for this meeting. If you received it, you can indicate so in the poll we're about to launch. Here we go. Okay, so please indicate if you got this email in the poll. And we have. All right, it's
Okay.
looking good. So we'll close this.
Oh,
and
it's not
once-
finished yet. Hold on. It's 67 already. So for those who didn't get the email, did you check your junk mail or spam folder? Maybe it's there. We'll have to figure it out. But what you can do
This-
is
yeah,
that, yeah, you could whitelist us, whitelist our email address. So McMedHacks2021@gmail.com is what. Okay, I see. Someone said it was in their spam folder. Okay, so it is possible that it might go there, but if you whitelist us at medhacks2021@gmail.com, you'll always get email from us. And
yeah,
yeah,
and information about how to whitelist the email will go on our website shortly. We were notified of this issue just very recently, so it's not there yet. But if you're watching the recording and you didn't receive this email, please do whitelist our email, and you'll receive information about the upcoming events shortly. All right, so I'm going to end this poll, and let's go to the next one.
Yeah, okay, so we wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about attendance. So as you know that this workshop series is lasting from today, which is June 12th, to July 31st, is 8 weeks, and we'll have content ready for you every week. So we want you to be as engaged as possible during throughout the week, and to award that engagement, we'd like to present a certification of completion at the end of it. So our attendances are going to be automatically taken through Zoom, which where we're at right now. But what we need from you is that you must sign in with the same email account, with the same Zoom account, and the same name every time. This is how we're gonna track the attendance. Essentially, we're going to automate your list and email and check if you're here every time. And that's how we're going to track it. So if you sign in with a different account or name, we might miss you. So just keep that in mind. Every time you must sign in with the same Zoom account and the same name. Don't change your name. And we want you to keep your real name here as well. Basically the same name as when you registered for our event. And both the presentation and workshop will count towards attendance. So however, today the opening ceremony will not count towards your attendance. Yeah, so if you cannot make it to an event, you can make it up for the missed attendance by watching the recording. So as you can see, this is being recorded right now. And we'll also have a short quiz for the workshop ready for you, prepared by our team and our mentors, that if you can make it for a live session, you can watch the recording and complete that quiz to make up for it. And maximally, you can miss 2 events out of the entire workshop series in order to obtain this certification of completion. Yep. Luca, you're muted.
Classic. Okay, I was muted. We have a few rules for our participants. We'd like you all to be respectful in the messages you send. This isn't mandatory, but we strongly encourage you to use your real name on Zoom. That's a good way for people to stay in touch with you. We ask that during the presentations and workshops, you remain muted. You don't disrupt the person that's presenting or instructing the workshop. We will have designated Q&A sessions for your questions, and the other questions you can direct towards the Discord server. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so this is us, not the TV show, but so this is my name is Yu Jing, and I'm a master's student in medical physics at McGill University in Dr. Shirin Enger's lab. And Luca.
Yeah, hello, I'm Luca. Now that we've got the technicalities out of the way, we can finally introduce ourselves. I'm also an undergraduate student at McGill University studying physics. And I've also been working for Dr. Enger, doing research in medical image analysis using deep learning. So this is right down our alley.
Yeah, and this is our amazing leadership team. When we started organizing for this event, we didn't think it was going to reach this people, but we were very, very pleasantly surprised. And we can't do this without the help of our amazing teammates. And they're, as you can see, Marie, Sachin, Alana, Zachary, Hossein, Elena, Juan, and Milosh. They're all on different parts of our teams that have contributed a lot to the success of our event. So you're going to see them from time to time as well. And we really appreciate their help too.
Yeah. So today we have two mentors here. We have Finn and Ying. They will be answering a lot of your questions on Discord and will be available this entire week to answer more questions if you have them about either what you see in the presentation today or in our workshops. And this is a good time to pause and show you how the Discord works. I believe the link was already posted in the chat. You can join our Discord and you'll see that we have a designated text channel for today. Here you can ask questions about things you'll hear today. So please post those in week 1. In the announcements channel, we will be posting an announcement. For example, Zachary has posted an announcement about how to make questions anonymously. So if you would like to be anonymous while asking a question, you can do that as well. We also encourage other participants to answer questions. It's a feature that we allow. So just hit the more button and reply if you want to reply to someone's question. We also have a meet and greet channel where you can introduce yourself and get connected with other participants, and a mentors channel. So if you have any technical questions about anything you hear during the workshops, you can contact our mentors directly in this channel, and they will be monitoring this for questions as well. Today, during the event, we'll be collecting questions in this week 1 channel and answering them later on. So as we have our presenter, Shirin, talk today, she will not be answering questions during the presentation, but after, during the Q&A, and our mentors will help curate the questions that come into this channel and ask them during the designated Q&A session. Yujing, was there something you wanted to add?
Yeah, so I would like to mention about the meet and greet channel that everyone should really take this as a great opportunity to meet each other, because as we'll show our statistics later on, that everyone's from a very, very different background and it's amazingly interdisciplinary. And if you want to use this opportunity as a networking opportunity and find potential collaborators, potential friends, just discussing cool ideas, that this is an amazing channel to do so. Yeah, so we very much encourage you to do that. And we'd also like to mention that at the end of the workshop series at the beginning of August, we'll also have a hackathon planned for you. And I don't know if you have attended a hackathon before, but one of the catches is that you can make teammates with new people. And this, if you want to attend that hackathon in August, this is a chance for you to make friends now for that August event. All right.
All right. So going back to the presentation, let's talk a little bit about what McMedHacks is about. Yujing, I believe this is you.
Okay. So. All right. Yeah. So the motivation of our workshop. So as you know, our workshop name is Medical Imaging Analysis and Deep Learning in Python. And so the motivation of our program is to help our peers and researchers that are new to the field to kickstart their research projects in medical imaging analysis. And we'll do this weekly from today to July the 31st. And every week we're going to host two events. One is hosting presentations and discussions with invited speakers. who are leaders in the intersection of medical imaging analysis and deep learning, where you can get inspired, get a sense of what's going on in the cutting edges of the field. And secondly, we'll also organize interactive hands-on coding workshops to teach you fundamental tools of how to replicate this kind of cutting edge research. And may I notice the first one is happening tomorrow, and Luca and I will be the one teaching there. So we really hope to see a lot of you there. We'll go into more details about that as well. And thirdly, as I mentioned before, at the beginning of August, we're going to host a hackathon, which is a coding challenge of 72 hours, 42 to 72 hours or so. And everyone will present their project demo at the end, and there will be judges. We'll have prizes ready for you. Yeah.
All righty. So even though this all started out as something we had only planned for people in our lab group, everyone seemed to really be interested in something like this, and it's grown to be an international event. We have 356 registered participants. It looks like 100 of you have shown up today. That may be in part due to the fact that a large part of the participants are on different continents, at different time zones. And I do want to mention again that if you missed this presentation, it will be recorded. And if you miss future presentations, you can also watch the recordings and make up for the missed participation with the quiz. And I just want to point out, we have people from all kinds of backgrounds, a lot of people from medical backgrounds and computer science backgrounds. A few of you are from physics backgrounds as well, and people from all kinds of levels of education as well, which we were very excited to see. We also noticed you had a wide range of Python proficiencies, which is why we're aiming to make the workshops beginner friendly. We'll start off with an introduction to Python and go all the way through to some of the cutting edge architectures that are used for medical image analysis today. Yeah.
Okay, here's a little bit more about our events. We have mentioned this before, but it doesn't hurt to say it again. It's going to happen from today, this opening ceremony, to July 31st. And every week, 2 things are going to happen: speaker presentation and hands-on coding workshop. And yeah, so I have already covered this before. So the speaker will be there for inspiration, networking opportunities, and we'll also have people in our Discord channel to dedicated their time during those presentations and workshops to answer your questions. And then the hands-on workshop will take place on something called Google Colab. And it's basically, we'll cover this, how it works tomorrow, but if you have if you have a Google Drive, if you use Google before, and if you code before, it's very, very easy to use. It's basically a cloud computing platform where you can code online, and you can execute code online, and it's shareable, editable, kind of like a Google Doc. And it works like a Jupyter notebook. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. And yeah, and you're gonna learn how to perform some of the cool things for medical image analysis using deep learning. And stay tuned for the hackathon in early August. It's gonna be really fun.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, for tomorrow's workshop, since we will be using Google Colab, a nice added benefit is there's absolutely no installation needed. You will need a Google account, which is free to set up and very easy. But you don't have to install Python. You don't have to install any packages. That's all done for you. And that's a part of the reason we're using Google Colab. It doesn't matter what computer you're using or how much computational resources you have. Google Colab, so everyone will be able to participate tomorrow. And again, it'll be beginner friendly. You don't need any prior knowledge coming in.
And I'll also have one more thing to say about Google Colab. As Luca mentioned, that you don't need to install anything, like you don't even need to install Python on your computer to follow us. However, if you do like to install that, and we don't have time during the workshop to talk you through it, you can attend our drop-in tutorial sessions to talk to our mentors and get it set up there. Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at our program then. In the first week, we'll have the introduction to Python for deep learning. The presentation is today, right now, and the workshop is tomorrow, and will be held by Yujing and me. We'll walk you through Python and Google Colab and just the fundamentals of how to work with Python and Google Colab and some of the very useful modules that will be used throughout the other workshops in the following weeks. In week 2, we'll have an introduction to deep learning. And we'll have presenters, Renata Raidu and Roy Keys. And the workshop will be led by our former colleague, Shimang Mao, who's now working at Mila. And this will just get you started with deep learning and introduce you to the fundamentals, really, of how deep learning works. From here on out, you have a good base knowledge. So in week 3, we'll jump into the first imaging modality, which will be histopathology. And we'll do some algorithmic image analysis, because even though this the point of McMedHacks is to teach you deep learning based image analysis, it always goes hand in hand with some algorithmic image analysis. So we'll also cover things like image augmentation, which is very important for deep learning purposes. And we'll have 4 excellent speakers from Limbus AI speak during our 3rd week. In week 4, we'll jump over to the CT imaging modality and talk a little bit about semantic segmentation of CT images. We'll have Christina Gilman and Lei Xing present during that week, and Farad Malek will be doing the workshop. Week 5 and 6, we'll do ultrasound and MR imaging modalities, and we'll cover instance segmentation and GAN-based segmentation, which are some of the most cutting-edge segmentation methods out there at the moment. And then in week 7, we will do multimodal image analysis and treatment outcome prediction. And some of the dates and speakers for this are still tentative, as we're still getting that locked in, and will be adjusted based on your availability and attendance as well.
And I just would like to acknowledge that for week 7, we forgot to put on the slide, but Dr. Abraham Shamsuddin are going to be our instructor for week 7.
Yeah, and he's here today.
He's here today. If you want to say hi, hello.
Yeah. Okay. So, oh, there he is, driving, or hopefully being driven. Okay. Then without further ado, I'll let Yujing introduce today's speaker.
Yeah, so our speaker today is Dr. Shirin Enger. She is an associate professor at the Gerald Rothman Department of Oncology at McGill University, and she is a Canada Research Chair in Medical Physics. She's the Research Director of Medical Physics at the Lady Davis Institute for Medical Research and Siegel Cancer Center of the Jewish General Hospital in Montreal. So during her presentation, which is happening soon, Dr. Enger will give an introduction to McMedHacks, our team, and our mission in the coming weeks. Dr. Enger will also give an overview of the use of AI in improving the quality, automation, and speed up of the entire workflow in radiotherapy, from patient positioning to absorbed dose calculations, treatment plannings, and plan verifications. So welcome, Dr. Enger. You may unmute yourself.
Yeah, and we will add that to us, Dr. Enger is our supervisor and our mentor.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction, and I'm just going to share my screen. Thank you for inviting me to your exciting workshop series to be the keynote speaker or the first presenter. I'm going to share my screen here. And thank you, Eugene, for the nice introduction. However, I'm not going to go through the workshop itself because you've done a very well job of describing the workshop. So a couple of weeks ago, I asked some of my students to organize a small workshop for the new students that came in. And then Luca asked me, why not organize for everybody? And I thought, sure, you can organize for everybody. I thought he meant just for McGill, but then it became bigger. And they put a lot of time and efforts in this. You've done a great job. In just a couple of weeks, they've lined up international speakers and the mentors and instructors. So very well done. I'm very proud of you. So I'm going to just close my camera if possible due to bandwidth issues. So quickly, my disclosures. I do work with AAPM, with many task groups. And in all of these task groups, we do work with brachytherapy vendors, and my main research interest is brachytherapy. So I have to disclose this. I also have a grant from Varian on an unrelated topic. So just going back here, actually, Eugene, and I don't have any objectives, unfortunately, but the learning objective or the objectives of this meeting will be, or this presentation. What is a medical physicist? What medical physicist uses, and where medical physicist works? Because there are many of you who are not medical physicists, and you have some difficulties to understand what does a physicist do in a hospital. What do we do? And then I'll go over to briefly describe what we work with and why we as a group are interested in machine learning and deep learning based solutions. So I'm going to describe some of the problems or limitations that we face or have, and how we solve these with deep learning based solutions. So hopefully you will get a big overview. I'm not going to go in detail of any models or algorithms that we are using. This is just to keep your interest in the subject and hopefully inspire you to do the same work or work with us if you want to in the future, and promote collaborations. So briefly, what is medical physics? So medical physics is a profession where we apply physics to healthcare for patient imaging, measurements, and patient treatments. Medical physicists use a variety of analytical computer-aided engineering techniques in their works. We use a machine called linear accelerator, for example, to deliver radiation. We also have internal, so linear accelerator deliver radiation from outside in. So it's an external beam radiotherapy technique. We have also brachytherapy, which is irradiates from inside out, where we use afterloaders and radioactive sources to deliver radiation. We use complex software-based treatment planning systems to plan the treatment for our patients. We use different imaging modalities such as X-ray images, ultrasound, computed tomography, magnetic resonance imaging, positron emission tomography, single photon emission tomography, and so on. We use lasers and many more equipment. So it's a very diverse and interdisciplinary field of science. So medical physicists work with a wide range of medical, technical, and administrative staff, and we work also with patients. We do conduct research. We develop and evaluate new analytical techniques. We develop new treatment modalities, new imaging modalities, new delivery systems. We do also develop a lot of software used for medical applications. We plan and ensure safe and accurate treatment of patients. We do create new systems to investigate medical conditions in patients. We provide advice about radiation protection to different organizations such as the government. We do train and update healthcare, scientific, and technical staff. We do manage radiotherapy quality assurance programs. We develop mathematical modeling. We maintain equipment. We write reports. One of the big responsibilities of the medical physicist is to also teach. And we have many management roles. So where does a medical physicist work. We work in hospitals, we work in universities and other research organizations. Myself, for example, I am a research physicist. I sit in a hospital. I work with my clinical colleagues, so clinical physicists. I also work with radiation oncologists. I work with other basic scientists, and my research is very interdisciplinary thanks to the possibility for me to sit in the hospital and work with the clinicians and see limitations in the healthcare daily, and to be able to use my knowledge and also use my students' knowledge and my collaborators' knowledge, link people, and together solve the limitations and challenges in the hospital. As a medical physicist, we can also work in the industry. We can work in companies that develop therapy, diagnostic, or medical instrumentations. These can be both hardware and software. We can work also in the public sector and governmental agencies. So it's a very diverse line of work. It's a very interdisciplinary line of work, and it's a very rewarding work. For myself, as you see, I'm fortunate to work with very young scientists coming into the field, and I learn from them every single day, and it's I wouldn't change my job to anything. I am very happy to be a medical physicist. So briefly, to go through a external beam radiotherapy. So firstly, what is radiotherapy? So one of the tasks of a medical physicist is to be a, so first of all, I forgot to mention that a medical physicist so the work of a medical physicist can be classified into a number of subfields. We can be radiation oncology physicist, medical imaging physicist, nuclear medicine physicist, medical health physics, so medical health physicist. We then work with radiation safety and protection in medicine. We can work with non-ionizing medical radiation and so on. And if we are working in a radiation oncology department, being radiation oncology physicist, we are responsible for radiotherapy delivery, so that the dose is calculated properly to the patient, it's safely delivered, and so on. So here I briefly made a workflow of external beam radiotherapy, and as it consists of many modulated, many modules, starting with patient assessment and where radiation decision and consulting occurs. We start with simulation, image registration, radiation in radon, contouring, and then treatment planning, quality assurance, and treatment delivery, consisting of different steps such as dosimetry planning, plan review, physics QA, physician image review, setup verification, daily imaging, treatment, and then the treatment goes on until it's finalized, and then there is a patient follow-up, and the physicist is more or less involved in all of the steps. And as you see, there are many steps here, and many of the steps can be automated by machine learning based solutions. I myself work in brachytherapy, and for those of you who don't know what brachytherapy is, I've borrowed a
HDR brachytherapy
video from YouTube. Unfortunately, it has a voice, and I'm going to sometimes close it and talk myself. So let's just, and this is HDR brachytherapy. There is also LDR, low dose rate brachytherapy. We won't talk about different categories of brachytherapy.
precise tumor targeting. High dose rate brachytherapy is a well-established form of internal radiation therapy.
So just to briefly describe brachytherapy, high dose rate brachytherapy in this context, we have the patient that has been, the oncologist has placed applicator needles in place for this patient specifically. For example, an applicator has been placed, then 3D image is acquired either with computer tomography or MRI, and a organ delineation and segmentation has been performed by the physician. The physicist does catheter reconstruction, and the dose is calculated in the clinical treatment planning system, and dose is optimized in the clinical treatment planning system. These are sent to this robot here, which is called an afterloader, which delivers the radiation. And as you see here, the applicator is placed inside the patient's the nasal cavity here. This is, and then transfer tubes are connected to this applicator and further to these to this afterloader, and then we have one single radiation source. Conventionally, this radiation source is iridium-192 that is in a safe inside this robot, and this program that the physicist has written then gives comments to this afterloader that to release the source, go inside each of this transfer tube, each of the needles, and give those according to the treatment plan created. So,
that uses a small radioactive source positioned directly into or around the tumor for a short period of time. The treatment is conducted with a computer-controlled HDR afterloader. The source is quickly driven from a shielded safe through transfer tubes and applicators and positioned accurately to irradiate the tumor. In the case of a nasopharyngeal tumor, a special silicone applicator guides the source alongside the tumor in millimeter increments. Prior to the treatment, a designated treatment planning system is used to calculate the exact source positions and dwell times to ensure an optimal dose distribution to the tumor. After the treatment, the source is driven back into the shielded safe of the afterloader. HDR brachytherapy is...
So, unfortunately, since we would like to have very fast time between applicator needle insertion to the final treatment, the treatment planning softwares used clinically treat our patient here as a big sphere of water. Obviously, our patient is not a big sphere of water, and in the clinical system, we do not take into account the tissue, patients, the radiation interaction with patient's tissue, the applicator, and so on. So we have no heterogeneity is taken into account, and dose is calculated in a very homogeneous water sphere. So some approximations needs to be done to deliver the dose as quickly as possible. So also during my talk, I'm going to talk about different innovations that a medical physicist can do to be able to, for example, improve the dosimetry, here being treating patient as a water sphere, to actually take into account patient's geometry, because we do take patient images with 3D imaging to do take into account of patient's images, tissue, patient's tissue, applicator material, and so on, and transport radiation in proper medium to be able to calculate dose accurately to the tumor, as well as to the radiation sensitive nearby organs, so that we can make sure to cure the patient with as few side effects as possible. So in our group, we've developed a software package called Rapid Brachy MCTPS, which is a Monte Carlo based radiation brachytherapy treatment planning system. And this treatment planning system makes sure to transport radiation in accurate material and the tissues, and also take patient's geometry into account. So, but this software is Monte Carlo based, which means that it is very accurate. It's the gold standard, but it is too slow to be used in the clinical treatment, in a clinical environment. So how this works is that we import patient images, we import the applicators, place them where we want it to be. Here is one of our patients that we've placed a rectal applicator. The patient suffers from rectal and rectal tumor. We lock the applicator in place, assign proper material and mass density to the applicator. This is from a cervix case. Again, we do place the applicator and then assign proper material and mass density. We contour, delineate the tumor and organs at risk. We assign proper material and mass densities to all the involved organs. And then we do catheter reconstruction and add new catheters, or just use the clinical one if we wish to. We do the dose calculations here, which are performed with the clinical sources that we have. So here we have implemented all the commercial radiation source models. We choose which radioactive source we would like to place in the core of the radioactive source, and we start with radioactive decay. We choose the resolution for our simulations, and so on. So we do per dwell position dose calculation. We do optimize the dose, and after the dose has been optimized, we get dose maps, three-dimensional dose maps that then we can analyze further with a very sophisticated analysis package that this treatment planning system has. So we can visualize dose volume histograms, we can look at dosimetric indices, and we can see dose color washes or just isodose lines superimposed over the patient geometry. So we have already created this. So as a medical physicist, we have answered one of the limitations in our clinic, which was that clinically we used a water patient, so a sphere that we pretended to be a patient. We did develop a software that is based on the Monte Carlo technique, which does calculate voxel by voxel dose to the patient's actual tissue. However, it is too slow to be used in a clinical environment. It's very accurate, but too slow, unfortunately. So recently, we've seen that artificial intelligence and interest in rapidly is arising in use of artificial intelligence-based solutions to investigate radiotherapy treatment and response pattern in high-dimensional data. So obviously, again, we are not developers of artificial intelligence-based algorithms. We know that they exist out there, and we are being multidisciplinary scientists. We would like to know how can we use these already developed algorithms and models, take them to our discipline, adapt them. So we have to understand them well enough to modify, sometimes adapt them, and make sure that they apply to our problems and solve it with this already developed models. So just briefly to go through artificial intelligence, what is it? Because people do exchange the word machine learning, artificial intelligence, and sometimes I think there is a misunderstanding one to the other. So artificial intelligence itself can be divided into different subfields. We have expert system, natural language processing, robotics, computer vision, computerized speech recognition, and machine learning. Here I have put 4 of these artificial intelligence-based solutions that could be used in a radio-oncology department. We can use natural language processing, which is a system that understands language. We can extract information from unstructured data, such as clinical notes, medical journals, to supplement and enrich the structured medical data. Robotics is used by inbuilt AI program, and most of the industrial robots were only programmed to carry out repetitive tasks. And however, we have now self-learning robots with machine learning logic inside. And so they could be considered an AI in robotic AI-assisted surgery. We have computer vision. This is concerned with the theory and technology for building artificial systems that obtain information from images or multidimensional data. And then machine learning, which we use mostly in my field. Machine learning refers to presenting carefully curated data to computer algorithms to find patterns and systematically generate models. So machine learning itself consists of different categories. We have supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. And in most of our tasks that we do, we have already a ground truth. So we do use supervised learning. For example, for image segmentation, we can either use then further classification or regression, depending on how we choose to segment our images. And in some other applications that I will go through, we consistently use regression, and so on. So supervised learning, as the name says, the system is trained using past data, which includes input and output, and is able to take decisions or make predictions when new data is encountered. In unsupervised learning, the system is able to recognize patterns, similarities, and anomalies, taking into consideration only the input data. And then we have reinforcement learning, where decisions are made by the system on the basis of the reward punishment it received for the last action it performed. I'm not going to go into too much detail of this. However, just for you to know that when we use deep learning, and deep learning is one of the subfields of machine learning. So if we go through the brachytherapy workflow again, from applicator needle insertion to treatment, how much of this can we automate? Here are just some recent work from our group, where we used deep learning in collaboration. This is a collaboration with the Mayo Clinic and Dr. Christopher Dufell, where we are using approaches with deep learning to automatically digitize applicators and needles. So this is work of Luca, where he uses deep learning and density-based clustering on 2D CT images for applicator digitization. In another work, we are using UNet, which is, again, he did use this in his first paper as well, is readily available deep learning architecture that exists. It's already developed by experts in another field, and we borrow it in our field. It's efficient, and we can do accurate segmentation of tumor region in pathology images that we need later for either outcome predictions or for dosimetry. So as you see, it already exists a lot of algorithms out there developed by experts in other fields that we borrow and take to our field. Sometimes we adapt, and then we solve our problems with. Another application is dosimetry. So as I've told you a couple of slides ago, we do have very accurate dose calculations performed with the Monte Carlo method. However, Monte Carlo method is, despite of being gold standard and accurate, is too slow to be used in a clinical environment. So how can we use AI-based methods for fast radiation calculations? We would like to enable radiation calculations that are comparably accurate to the state-of-art methods, but significantly faster to execute. And for this, we would like to model the underlying physics of radiation interactions with matter, rather than standard first principle physics-based methods. Is this possible? Well, we investigated and looked if we could do this. So our goal was to generate Monte Carlo-based dose calculations given patients' data. We would like to use patient images, patient geometry, tissue composition, and everything to predict the dose that was as accurate as Monte Carlo. So here we had real Monte Carlo-based dose calculation maps generated by Monte Carlo-based dose calculation engines for each patient. So this told us that, okay, this is a supervised learning problem. And values in each of the voxels are real numbers. So this indicated that this is a regression problem. And input and outputs could be seen as 3D images, which also told us that we could borrow then solutions from computer vision based domain. So in the end, after collecting all this information, we decided to use a multi-layer convolutional neural network. And I'm not going to go through the network itself. I've listed the publication for you there. If you're interested, you can download, or if you don't have access to this journal, you can email me and I will send it to you. So what we did here is that we took in total 61 prostate and 10 cervical cancer patients, included them in the study. And the model was trained with 35 prostate cancer patients as the training group. And we had 12 prostate patients in the validation group. And the trained model was then tested on 14 prostate and 10 cervical cancer patients. And the grouping of prostate cancer patients were done randomly. So due to the diversity in patient size, all that data was pre-cropped, as you have to do with AI-based solutions. And after training the model, we discovered that the difference between Monte Carlo results and deep convolutional neural network-based predicted dose were on average 0.75% for prostate CT-VD90 and up to 1.45% for organs at risk. So this matrices might not say much to some of you who are not familiar with the terminology, but this just told us that actually the CNN-based model did predict those very well. And the model was also demonstrated to have a good generalization to cervix data, which was unseen during training, and it had similar performance as for prostate. So the prediction time on average was 1.1 second for our AI-based model, where the Monte Carlo calculation needed 8.9 minutes on average in a 40 CPU computing node. And this is a factor of 300 speed up. Both of these to achieve type A uncertainty below 0.02% and 100% isodose, just to know that we use the same matrix for both of this. So if we go back to our image, we can see that with deep learning based solutions, we can actually automate most of the steps. So my future dream for our treatment planning software is to just take 3D images of the patient, and then in a couple of minutes, we would go to the treatment. There would be no manual organ delineation and segmentation. There would be no manual applicator needle insertion, no catheter reconstructions. Those calculations and those optimization would also be done automatically. So just to say that we are not obviously alone doing this, this is a very active field of research. You can see I've just added a couple of papers here that are published 2019 to 21. And there are plenty of work out there published already in automated contouring, applicator needle reconstruction, and dose optimization. So we are the only ones having a dose calculation prediction model, but the rest dose optimization and on, there are plenty of papers, and new papers are coming out every day. What about other fields? So we do have nuclear medicine-based solutions as well. This is a group that published in 2019. They developed a dose prediction model called Deep Dose, which is a voxel dose estimation method using deep convolutional neural network for personalized internal dosimetry. So in internal dosimetry, a formulation called medical internal radiation dose, or MIRD, is used. MIRD has many limitations. Absorbed dose to a target organ per unit activity in a source organ is calculated. Is generalized. It uses generalized human mathematical phantom to do this calculations. It does not take advantages of the sophisticated imaging that is acquired of the patient. It also assumes a uniform activity, so a uniform radioactivity distribution. in each phantom organ, which is not true. Patient-specific body anatomy and tissue composition is ignored, and so on. So the limitations are many. And this group then also the most accurate method here would be the Monte Carlo method. Obviously, that is not possible due to time limitations. So this group decided to test AI and see if we could have those predictions that are close enough to Monte Carlo. And indeed, they used patient CT images to take into account patient's anatomy and tissue composition, and they have PET to account for the radioactivity distribution inside the tumor and also what leaks out to the healthy tissues. And they did have excellent agreement between AI-based solution and the Monte Carlo method, which is the gold standard. So the major limitation with machine learning-based solutions such as this one is that large and diverse data sets are needed to be able to take into account all kinds of patient geometries. And since this builds on a gold standard Monte Carlo, which means that you have to simulate this very resource requiring simulations with the Monte Carlo method for each radiation source used. For example, when we developed our deep learning method, we developed it first, or we trained it first for iridium-192. For all other sources, we have to retrain to be able to include the entire library of sources used in brachytherapy and make it a general purpose code. And the same is for this publication here. They've done it for fluorine uptake, and to do it for other radionuclides, they have to train separately for each of the radionuclide. However, since they've developed the model, it's just a training that will be added to this, which once everything has been done, this will be a very nice tool for people in nuclear medicine. Deep learning can also be used in treatment prognosis. This is a paper by Mobadresani et al. That was published in 2018. So in many studies, prognostic and predictive features are considered, which may be independent of a certain treatment or are integrated in order to guide therapy for cancer patients. And the latest trend in use of machine learning in oncology includes the integration of mixed data, such as clinical data and genomic data. And this is what the authors of this paper have been doing, published in 2018. And so instead of only analyzing specific feature, deep learning can also analyze high-level features from images, which this group takes into account. And it is clear that the application of deep learning methods could improve the accuracy of cancer susceptibility, recurrence, and survival prediction. So overall, the accuracy of cancer prediction outcomes has significantly improved with the applications of machine learning techniques. So we've talked a lot about deep learning used for different applications in our area. So we shouldn't forget that when we train our algorithm, we are using patient data. So the first thing before using any kind of AI-based method is data curation. Data curation is a means of managing data that makes it more useful for engaging in data discovery and analysis. And data curation includes identifying data sources of interest, verifying the data, cleaning the incoming data, transforming the data, integrating with other sources of data, and then you have to archive, manage, preserve, and represent your data properly. And since we are working with patient images and data, obviously ethical issues is a problem here that we need to take into account, and we have to address these ethical issues. And luckily, most of the institutes, they have institutional review board ensuring that the scientists are using the patient data ethically. So for example, this is from guidance for creating a protocol for research involving digital health AI large data sets from our institute. And we have to carefully indicate why we will use this patient's data, how we're going to anonymize it, and so on. So it's a very, very restricted how to use patient's data. And this is a machine learning reproducibility checklist that we get from our institute. This is developed by Dr. Joël Pinault. And we have to make sure in our protocols to address all of these points that are added in this list. So I put this here for you. If you don't have such a list, you can just copy this one. Further, there is another thing that I just want to talk about before we finish. It is the problem that can arise when biases exist in the original data on which our algorithms are trained. So biases inherent in humans training the system can surface in AI, and this has been published in many publications. So, for example, healthcare inequalities are systematic and intervened with the social inequalities. And in US, for example, it is well known that Black men and women can be expected to live a decade less than their white counterparts. I haven't seen any data for Canada, but I'm pretty sure that this social and socioeconomic inequalities also exist here and are translated into our data. So, for example, in US, again, much more like you have the likelihood of dying from heart disease and various types of cancers and stroke is much higher in the Black part of the population. And rates of diabetes in Hispanic Americans are around 30% higher than in whites. And members of LGBT community, for example, are twice as likely to suffer from mental health problems, and so on and so forth. So we have to remember that this kind of inequalities exist already in our data. And if we train the data based on white male, then artificial intelligence used in healthcare could be dangerous, as this author here, Robert David Hart, wrote in an article from 2017. However, there are plenty more today to look into. So when training our algorithms, we have to be very mindful, especially we who work in healthcare, that bias can only be discovered during rigorous testing and constant monitoring of the models. So before the use, quality of the data needs to be improved through pre-processing steps to make sure that it's more suitable for machine learning. And you have to make sure that your data quality issues include presence of noise, outliers, missing or duplicated data, and data that is biased, unrepresentative, and so on. So you have to be very much aware of your bias. Sometimes it's unconscious bias, but nevertheless. So in summary, artificial intelligence-based solution can automate and improve cancer prediction, radiotherapy treatment planning, and treatment outcomes. But if they are developed and used sensitively, artificial intelligence-based system can go a long way in mitigating socioeconomic and other inequalities by removing human bias. However, the major limitation is our data sets. We do need large and diverse data sets to learn all the intricacies of a problem to be able to train a model that is clinically implementable. And with this, I would like to thank you all for listening to me this Saturday afternoon, and for all wonderful researchers in my lab that enables this, especially Eugene and Luca. Thank you. I'm sorry if I went over time. I think I did.
No, you're fine.
You're totally fine.
You're
Thank
absolutely
you so
fine.
much for that
Thank you so
excellent
much.
keynote presentation.
Yeah.
It addressed a lot of the points that our participants expressed interest in the surveys that we've sent out. And I think it was a wonderful motivator for the upcoming workshops as well. We really see how relevant it is to have multimodal image analysis there, and to see how the different deep learning architectures are employed for medical physics. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And we can leave the floor open to our participants to ask some questions. And I see some questions are up there in the Discord chat. And if you would like to ask questions here, you may ask that you may raise your hand, and we're going to get to you. So, Luca, would we like our mentors to ask the questions that from our Discord channel?
Yeah, if again, if you have a question you would like to ask directly, you can use the raise hand feature on Zoom, and we will pick on you to be able to unmute yourself. Otherwise, we can start. I guess we could do it as well. We'll just read some of the questions from the Discord chat.
Okay, and so here's a $1 million question, Dr. Enger. How is brachytherapy superior to external beam therapy? That's the first question, first anonymous question.
Well, brachytherapy can be beneficial to for treatment of certain tumor types, because we do irradiate from inside out. We can come very close to the tumor, or sometimes the brachytherapy needles, in the prostate case, for example, can be placed inside the tumor. So dose distribution from brachytherapy sources decrease rapidly from the source, which means that we do harm organs at risk as little as possible. So we can deliver a very, very high dose to a small volume. However, brachytherapy can't always be used to all tumors, but there is plenty of publications during the last 2 years only for cervix, prostate, many of other gynecological cancer than cervix, breast, and so on. The outcomes are much better than external beam. So it's not good for all tumor types, but for some of the tumor types currently treated with brachytherapy, it's superior than external beam. However, due to some reimbursement issues in US, unfortunately, utilization of brachytherapy in US has declined, but recently we've seen that it's actually increasing in Canada and Europe. So in the systems where reimbursement is not an issue, so in the public healthcare system, they do take into account which modality is better for the patient or for the outcomes, and they use that. So in Canada, we've seen actually a slight increase in brachytherapy. And also I've seen in recent reports in Europe that brachytherapy has increased. HDR brachytherapy has increased to be more specific.
And HDR is high rate dose?
High dose rate brachytherapy.
Sorry, high dose rate brachytherapy. And Luca, you can ask the second question that we have here.
Alrighty, since no hands are raised yet, Cici in the chat would like to know, when you mentioned that using Monte Carlo algorithms, actually, Cici, would you like to ask this question yourself? If so, you can, I will unmute you. Just raise your hand if so.
I think they can also unmute themselves. No?
I think I've disabled that for our participants, but
yeah, okay.
Here we go. Cici, if you would like to, you could unmute yourself and ask this yourself now.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hello.
Hi.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hello. Well, yes, I had a question because you mentioned that, well, first of all, I'm not a medical physicist, so I'm not too familiarized, but you mentioned that using the Monte Carlo algorithm was too slow to predict the dose right now. And, but I would like to know what that means in terms of time. How is it that it is not translational yet, that you cannot use in the clinic? Say for a patient, I don't know, maybe it depends on the tumor size or the patient anthropometrics, but like how long would it take?
Yes, so as I mentioned, so first of all, Monte Carlo does not predict the dose. It does calculate dose properly in the patient's tissue. But as I told you, for example, the example I gave, it took for a prostate cancer patient 8.9 minutes with the accuracy that was, so the uncertainty was very, very low. It was much, much lower than the clinically accepted. So even if we go to clinically accepted uncertainties, probably we could do that simulation in 5 minutes. However, even 5 minutes, my clinical colleagues tells me that it's too long.
Yes.
So if we want to do this in seconds, so going from minutes to seconds, then AI-based prediction models are much better. And we've shown that we can with the deep learning-based model that we've developed, we can actually generate those distribution maps that are as accurate as Monte Carlo, but in seconds. So why not use it? It's just that we have to train it with so many diverse patient data sets, tumor types. So we have to train it on prostate. We have done it on cervix, on breast, and all the tumor sites, such that these engine learns all the different patient types, tissue types, and radiation sources used in brachytherapy. So it will require us probably 6 more months of training and plenty of patient data to be able to make it a general purpose package. Yes.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Cece, for asking the question. And I see the next question. Turge, you asked a question. If you'd like to say something yourself here, you could do so. And or if you don't want that, we can ask it for you. Maybe we can unmute.
I've given participants the ability to unmute themselves.
Yeah.
But if Sharia doesn't want to ask, we can ask for him or her. So I'll go ahead and read the question. It says, reducing time of the whole process is just about the CPU speed? Question mark. And what are the other main factors about it? So it's a question about reducing the processing time.
Yeah, so for now, when it comes to dose calculation, at least part of, so what AI or machine, what our deep learning based algorithm brings to the table is just speed. So yes, we would like to deliver as accurate dose as possible with the CPU power that exists in every little hospital or in any hospital. Now, obviously, if we have a cluster of a large cluster at our clinic that can generate fast dose calculations with Monte Carlo, we don't need any AI-based models. But we would like to develop algorithms that can be used in so many clinics as possible, even those that don't have resources to have their own local clusters. Because in our hospital or in our research center, we do have our own local cluster. However, we are aware that not all clinics or research centers do have clusters such as ours.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
So I see Abraham has raised his hand, and then we also have another question from Sharif. We can go with Sharif first because they asked first. So let's unmute him or her. So you can unmute now.
If they would prefer not to, we can also read the question.
we can also read it. Okay. Okay, so hi, very nice presentation. Just want to ask about applicator reconstruction in brachytherapy. The paper which you showed is for CT-based or MR-based brachytherapy, question mark. Thanks.
So both for dose calculations, so for example, the dose prediction model that I showed were based on CT, but it doesn't matter if it's CT or MR. When it comes to the dosimetry, instead of having voxel by voxel tissue and density assignment, since we don't have a CT to density curve in MR, we just do synthetic CT where we assign tissue assignment contour based. So we take the entire contour and assign it to the specific tissue for that specific organ. And it's the same for actually CT, MR, or ultrasound based. So the imaging itself doesn't matter. There are some little intricacies with each of them, but as long as it's DICOM based, which it is, we have a DICOM standard, and the DICOM tags themselves can be different between one treatment planning system to another. So I wouldn't say it is treatment modality differences, but there are vendor differences. in our field, when we have two major players, which is Varian and an Elekta, if I develop all my models on treatment plans made by Elekta system, then my colleague who has his treatment plan on a Varian system might need to change a little bit in the software itself to be able to read the data properly. So although we should have standardized DICOM format, which we have most of the time, there are some specific differences in tags that one needs to take into account before it becomes translationable. So I hope that answered your question, Sharib. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. And we have Ibrahim now. You can also unmute yourself, and this is one of our instructors.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Enger, for this great presentation, great overview of medical physics and connection with AI. My question mainly, how do you see the validation of the AI for predicting the dose itself and the tumor? Would you see it most beneficial? I'm just thinking about like the different prediction metrics that what they should include. Do you think this should be done more in respect to dosimetric indices or the 3D dose maps?
So that was actually a question that we did ask ourselves a lot. So we decided to go with dosimetric indices. So that's it. We do calculate with Monte Carlo, which is the gold standard. We extract the dosimetric indices, and then we compare with dosimetric indices from our gold standard, which is the Monte Carlo.
Okay, thank you.
However, I wouldn't recommend. So, well, this is totally another subject. But those that is predicted on Monte Carlo based solutions, usually these Monte Carlo based solutions are in-house solutions, and we've learned that. So first of all, so how dose volume histograms are extracted from clinical systems and how a volume of an organ is calculated in a clinical treatment planning system is a little bit different than many of in-house treatment planning systems. So it is a bit difficult to compare your own predicted results to clinical dosimetric indices. So you have to be mindful that in a clinical, you have to know your clinical system in and out to know how a volume of an organ is calculated in your treatment planning software. Have the dose volume histograms are created, the implementation of those volume histograms to be properly properly understand all of this, and then be able to compare your own dosimetric index to that. So that's why we always compare with our own Monte Carlo based treatment planning system, where we know exactly how we calculate volume of organ and how we implemented dose volume histograms, so that those volume indices that we extract are relevant, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and do you think this complexity is cross-solutional, or it's more like the software that's being used?
I think it's I think as long as, so any kind of development, if we work closely with vendors and make sure that we implement the same methods of extracting the volume of organs, implementing the same way of extracting, so implementing the same way of DVH, so those volume histogram, extraction of dosimetric indices, then this kind of issues become irrelevant. But right now, that's not the case. So, but we have to just be mindful of this. But the best scenario would be to collaborate very closely with the vendors and make sure that we are as consistent as possible. But due to non-disclosure agreements and such, it's not always for companies to share their information with us, and if they do, we cannot share with the community because we've written non-disclosure agreements that are very restricted. So it's always tricky. That's why we always compare with our own treatment planning system where we know how we've implemented it.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. We'll allow for one more question before we close. And then I see there are a few more that we can get to after we've closed. You can stay behind and have that question answered. And otherwise, we'll get back to you via messages. So we'll reach out to you if we don't get to your question after the event. So here we have two questions that are actually similar. They're both about QA. The first is, how can we use artificial intelligence in brachytherapy QA? That's from Mohini. And then from Rahil, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your names wrong. The Monte Carlo algorithm software you use to calculate the brachytherapy dose, how can it be verified with respect to QA, second dose check? Or it doesn't require QA check, being Monte Carlo the gold standard?
So for the QA, we have compared the calculation engine itself in the treatment planning system to other code or software packages that are published. We have also done very in-depth measurements and compared our simulated results with phantom measurements. And also we've QA'd other parts of the treatment planning system itself. So we have published every part separately, the calculation engine, the optimization algorithms, and also the contouring. We've compared it with Slicer RT, which is an online system, and so on. So we've QA'd each and every step in the treatment planning system, and it can be seen as we've developed it as a clinical treatment planning system where the clinician who use it can be familiar with the setup of the system itself. And the second question, I forgot.
The second question was the Monte Carlo algorithm software you use to calculate the brachytherapy dose. How can it be verified with respect to QA? In parentheses, second dose check.
Well, I actually don't know how it can be.
Yeah. And the follow-up was, or it doesn't require QA check, being Monte Carlo the gold standard?
I would say the second option, that it wouldn't, but again, I'm not a clinician, so I will leave that to the clinicians. But we have QA'd every single part of the TPS and published, so that it's very rigid, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. So then I'll share my screen and we close. There are two questions we haven't gotten to.
Yeah, we still have a question, anonymous question about how can AI dose prediction will be valid for all types of treatment, particle therapy with PPS. So we could get to this later after we finish the rest of our presentation, if you would like to stay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so here we've already covered this. You may receive, so during the entirety of our workshop, you may receive offline help from our mentors, and that will take place on Discord. I see that a lot of you have signed on to Discord, and you can see our meet and greet, the Meet Your Peers channel, where you can introduce yourself and interact. We're going to ask our mentors availabilities throughout a week when workshops are not happening. If you have questions for the hands-on coding workshop, you can go there and ask our mentors, such as, for example, what we said before, how to set up Python and things we didn't have time to cover during the workshop, and more. And we already sent the Discord link in the Zoom chat, and we can move on to the next slide.
All right, so we want to take a brief moment before we close to thank all of our sponsors who are helping to make this workshop series and hackathon become a reality. We have McMedHacks, and then our own McGill and the medical physics department. The Jewish General Hospital, Alpha Tau, and Comp. Thank you so much. And all right, then we'll move on to this.
Yeah.
Last slide.
last but not the least, a little bit self-promotion for myself and Luca. We're gonna have our first workshop, hands-on workshop for Intro to Python for Deep Learning tomorrow at 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So I know that a lot of people here are from different time zones. So we're going to link a time zone converter on our website for you to take a look and be sure to attend at the right time. And so the purpose of this first workshop is to lay a foundation for the later workshops, where we're only going to introduce how to use Google Colab, because that's where all the code is going to take place for future lectures too. And we're going to have introduction to Python. And this is one of the challenging things that we faced during the development of this workshop, because a lot of people are from different levels. Some are beginners, some are proficient, some are experts. So we try to cover levels for all those levels and try not to make you feel bored or overwhelmed. So we're going to give you as much resource as possible in the notebook that we're going to share with you tomorrow. And if we don't have time to cover everything, we'll be here to help you throughout the week for you to catch up, because the goal of the first workshop is to bridge it to the later ones, because in the second week, our friend and instructor Shimeng Mao from Mila, the Mila Institute, is going to cover Intro to Deep Learning. So it's kind of a jump from Intro to Python to Intro to Deep Learning. So we want to make sure that you have all the necessary tools that you have to understand the second workshop, and that will take place tomorrow in the first workshop. So if we're also going to cover some of the basics of medical imaging pre-processing toolkits, such as one of the most popular things called PyDICOM, and that's one of the packages that we're going to cover tomorrow as well. And if you have any questions, please email us at medhacks2021@gmail.com. And the next slide will be our social media slide. You can follow us on our Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And we are going to have all of our very timely updates there, thanks to our social media team. And yeah, so that's it. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow and for the rest of our events.
Yeah, and you will notice that the event is currently scheduled on a Saturday, and tomorrow is on a Sunday. That's because you've all indicated that weekends work best for you. However, the later dates aren't set in stone yet, and we'd like to make sure that as many of you can participate as possible. So before you leave, we'd like you to fill out one more little poll where you can just indicate when you would prefer to have these events on the weekend or on weekdays, because we want to make sure that it's best for all of you.
Yeah, so just for context, if you remember when you register, we asked for you to sign to fill out a when to meet form, and that was for us to figure out how to best accommodate everybody. And
It looks like all the responses are starting to come in.
Yeah.
And we will try to make this based on when you are available, but of course we have to take our speakers' schedules into consideration as well. So right now it's looking like most likely the majority of the events might be on the weekend, but there might be some during weekdays as well. We'll try to make it work for as many people as possible. And again, if you cannot come, there will be recordings that are posted for all participants. And you can fill out a short quiz just to prove that you've watched the recording if you want it to count towards your participation to get that certificate of completion. And with that, we can conclude today's presentation. Thank you again to Dr. Enger and our wonderful team. Thank you to everyone that came. I hope you all enjoyed it.
yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for coming today, and hope you have a nice rest of your Saturday. And we hope to see you for the rest of our events. And again, this is going to take place from today to the end of July, and that'll be 8 weeks. We're going to have something planned for you for every week. Just stay tuned. And every week there will be a hands-on coding workshop as well as a speaker presentation. So welcome to McMedHacks. I'm better at saying it now.
And
All
if you have any more additional questions, we know we had at least 2 in the chat. you can stick around. We'll answer those shortly.
Yep. Thank you. We'll stay here for a bit. If anyone wants to stay and ask questions. Thank you very much for coming. Maybe Luca, you want to stop sharing?
Yeah, I'll stop sharing, and then we can take a look at the questions that we got. We have one anonymous question for Dr. Enger. The anonymous question is, AI dose prediction will be valid for all types of treatment? Question mark. Example given, particle therapy with PBS.
Oh boy. Well, indeed, it can be, as long as you train it with the ground truth Monte Carlo simulations. So as long as you can train it, firstly, it cannot. So it has to be developed. A proper AI model must be first developed for that particle type, and then trained with Monte Carlo properly. So the answer is yes, but not the same model that we've developed for brachytherapy, and not the same Monte Carlo dose maps that we have calculated for brachytherapy, as long as the person knows the distinction there. So it's a yes, but further development of the algorithm and further training with the proper and correct Monte Carlo package. Yes.
And then we had one more question.
We have,
FA. And I will say, right after this question, we're going to stop recording. So if you're just waiting for us to stop recording to unmute yourself or turn on your camera, we'll stop recording after this last question here. Eugene,
yes.
Do you want to read it? It's in the chat. Or FA,
Yeah,
if you're here, you can.
Yeah, I can read it. So hi, thanks for the great presentation. I'm interested in machine learning and doing some research on this area, but I have no experience and nobody in our department is working on this field. What is your recommendation to start ML and be more involved in this research area? Well, FA, if you're still here, you can start by staying with us for the workshop series and get started.
Great question. Yeah, great answer, Eugene. Yeah, there are plenty of initiatives such as this one, and if I don't remember it wrongly, also Stanford and some other universities, they have open courses. So they have courses free of charge, put the entire course material online, and many other universities. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of these free resources are online. You just have to start. You just have to start, and there's a lot of if you have access to YouTube, there's a lot of great tutorials on YouTube, and there are YouTube series that you can start following as well. Luca, do you have any recommendations?
In terms of YouTube? Well, I would say
no,
go,
just recommendations.
Go to there's this site that might be very useful to people that are just starting out. It's called Papers with Code. I think.
Papers with Code, yes.
Yeah, that's excellent for if you want to read some recent research where the authors have actually provided their code, so you can download it. They're usually linked to their GitHub repositories, and then try it out on your own and modify it. Get really familiar with the material.
Yeah, and I would say the best way to learn how to code is to start coding, and to if you have some other people's code and you can try to start deciphering what they did and start applying the code, and that would be a great way. And the Stanford course that Shirin mentioned before is actually you can find it on YouTube if you just Google Andrew Ng NG. Machine learning course, Stanford, and you can find it. It's a great way to start. Yeah, so I think this is a good place to stop recording. I'll do that. Yeah, everybody agrees. Okay.